In 3 days, they had gotten a sample pad flex printer. They had done the etch and figured out the process. And I got back, and they had a little generic bait that they were going to print bass and crappie and all that kind of stuff on. And I go, no.
And then we move into the late 70s, and Lazy Ike hires some dude, out of Illinois by the name of Tom Seward, and they come out with the Natural Ike.
Yeah, Tom. There's a couple of things that we'd get a lot of stuff. People would come to us with stuff, wanting us to build, and we missed on several items. That was one of them.
Yeah.
Tom had sent I remember getting this, there's certain things in your life you just remember.
Yeah.
Well, you remember your mistakes the most.
Yeah.
And this was one of them. We get this little box, and there's this absolutely beautiful bait in there. But we got no idea how to make it. We didn't know anything about pad flex printing, which is how you get those colors and designs and everything on there. We were, all of our stuff was hand painted, hand sprayed and everything. And so we told Tom that it was a beautiful bait, but we just couldn't do it. So we go to the tackle show the next year. It was AFTMA at the time, and Tom has gotten with ended up being Crankbait Corporation, and they have this little lure, and it's a generic looking fish lure, and it's got different patterns on it, and it's the hit of the show. I mean it was Tom had done an excellent job. Tom was pretty creative.
Yeah. And
he had done an excellent job. Hit of the show. Jim goes, we got to do something with this, So I was the guy that got to drive out early and put up the show, put up the display, tear it down. And I think it was in Atlanta that year. And so I got home 3 days after they all flew back, and I got home 3 days later. And by the time I got home, they had figured out, remember Jim's the can't wait?
Yeah.
In 3 days, they had gotten a sample pad flex printer. They had done the etch and figured out the process. And I got back, and they had a little generic bait that they were going to print bass and crappie and all that kind of stuff on. And I go, no. I said, Jim, we need to make a bass. We need to make a bass look like a bass and a crappie look, and a brim. And Jim goes, no, we're going to do this. And so I went and I carved. Now everybody, if you've ever seen a little bitty bass this long, it looks like a minnow. It doesn't look like. Well, I wanted my bass to look like an 8-pound largemouth this long. So I put the big belly on it and the flared,
Yeah.
And we had a guy by the name of Wayne Davis that was our general manager, but also he did all the artwork. Really, really sharp guy. He hand painted, hand drew all the little scales, did all the artwork.
Wow. And
I took it to Jim. I said, this is what I'm talking about. And Jim goes, yeah, let's do that. just that quick. And that was the beginning of the Smallfry series. The Smallfry series was probably the series that I was the most proud of. It was, they were good lures, and they just really.
Yeah, and you had the brim, you had the crappie, the crawdad, and the bass, right?
We had a walleye.
Oh, and a shad.
We had shad. We had and a walleye.
Yeah.
The shad. That's a funny one. We came out with the shad, and very popular. Just we set all kinds of sales records and stuff with it. Then Rapala copied it with a shad wrap.
Yeah.
And that was their version. It's not an exact copy. That was their version of it. And now they are selling the snot out of them. Yeah. They had the best ad campaign I've ever seen. You may remember it. You open up the magazine, and there's a full page of black, and up in the corner, it had a little picture of shad wrap, and it said they had like 150,000 coming, and when they're gone, they're gone. The next month, you open it up. Same ad. Yeah. The next month you open it up and there's a little blank spot and it says they're gone. Everybody ran out and bought them.
Yeah.
Now they didn't tell you there was 150 of them coming that order. There was 4 billion coming behind that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember that. I mean, that was an amazing.
That was a great.
And it's still probably classified as the best winter crankbait of all time.
Well, it was a. Jim decided he wanted to copy it. Now we're going to copy a copy of our lure, you know.
Yeah, right.
But they're selling a lot of them, and I'm going, man, I don't want to copy things. We're supposed to be leaders, you know. And I go through all this. Jim says, yeah, but we can sell a bunch of them. Now, when I started my own company, I understood that. But when back then, I didn't have to make payroll and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So what I did is, if you look at a Shad Rap real hard, and it may not be this, one eye poked out just a little bit more than the other. I made the opposite eye poke out on ours just as
geez.
Well,
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, their bill was different than the one that you guys had on the Smallfry.
Well, actually, it was different, but it was the same. I mean, because of our manufacturing process, it was different.
Mm-hmm.
That was a booger putting that in too, because it had a hole you had to drill and then cut a slot, and it was just tough.
So to get all those, I mean, it's one thing to take a crankbait that's shaped like a DB2, DB3, and make another one that might be bigger or smaller. And just from experience, you probably know how to insert ballast weight, and you'll pretty much hit it on the first go. Doing those small fries, every body shape was different, and their center of gravity would be different.
Well, here's one of the advantages we had of making a wood bait versus a plastic bait, and what you're talking about. And I had this problem too, because I'd get it and it would work really good, but by changing the lip angle a tiny bit, or the lip placement a tiny bit, or the weight or anything, you could completely change the lure. So the way we did it, is we'd cut out a body, paint it, and then cut a slot in it. Now, if I wanted to change the lip angle, I just changed that slot a little bit. Mm-hmm. Well, if I wanted to go in, if I wanted to place it higher on the nose or lower, I was able to do that. As a plastic manufacturer, every time you do that, you're spending $35,000 or more.
On a new mold.
And so you get it really close. Now, do you want to spend another $35,000 to get it just right, or is that one good enough?
Yeah.
And that's one of the advantages we had of being able to. So I was able to try everything, and I pretty much did. I'd take a box full of them with just a little bit different lip angle, a little bit different eye placement on the lip. Another advantage we had is I was able to take component parts. Like if you notice, a lot of our lips were used on different baits, same lip on different baits. So we didn't have to have a different mold each time we did something different.
Yeah.
And then if we needed to do something, we would make another mold. But if I could make that one do what I wanted it to do, that just saved us a lot of money and got us along in the process a lot quicker, because we didn't have to have the molds made and wait on all that.
Yeah.
Another bait we missed on, one time, John Fox brought us at Bagley's. He brought us this really big, ugly clunker. It was built on a spinnerbait frame, but it had these pieces of copper pop riveted together, and really ugly thing. And we decided we weren't going to do it, and it was a lunker lure.
Bill Harkin's lunker lure.
We missed on.